I'm here with part 4 of my Back to Homeschool series. This video is all about gathering the details, or as I like to think of it, getting all your thinking done at once. Hey friends, welcome back to Regular Secular Mama. If you're new here, my name is Cassie, and I'm a homeschool mom to 2 kiddos who are currently ages 9 and 12 years old. I appreciate it so much, and it helps my videos reach new viewers if you give this video a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and the bell for notifications. If you've been following this series, then by now you have a rough idea of how your whole homeschool year is probably going to look. Now that you have that out of the way, it's a good idea to figure out how you're actually going to move through all those well-laid plans. This is where I feel like Notion really shines as a digital homeschool planner. It's a really great way to gather all those details in one place. You can have things like links, PDF files that you need to print out, book lists, all of it. Now I'm going to preface this by saying there are so many ways to organize your homeschool materials and all the things that you need for your lessons. The simplest thing would honestly be to just put all your teacher books and materials and things on a couple of teacher cards. Boom, done. Easy. As you know though, I needed an extreme amount of space saving in my RV. There was just not anywhere to put stuff like that, so I did as much as I could digital. Therefore, this video might not appeal to everybody, and that's okay. Maybe you still find it useful, or maybe you're just interested in seeing how a digital online sort of organization system works. And I promise this is not sponsored. It really is free. I just really love it. I haven't really done a super detailed tutorial on Notion yet. I've talked about it in a few videos, but think of this as like a mini tutorial on how to get your lessons and plans and resources into Notion. Although I haven't actually done this part of the planning process yet, I do have a little bit of a template because it's something that I've used already for the past year, and I do have quite a few of our history lessons already mapped out in Notion because I wasn't sure how quickly we were going to go through history this year. But you are still following along as I go through the process of just organizing and making sure everything I have is ready to go. When I pull up my screenshot here, I'm going to show you how I go through creating a copy of the database that I already have, so I can kind of wipe out things that we're not using or things that we already finished and get ready for the next school year. Since I've already mapped out our whole school year in Google Sheets, this part's going to be pretty simple, I think. Here's where we left off in part 3 of this series, where we got a little bit of a glimpse into how our whole year would work. I only filled in the first 6 weeks so far because I'm still not sure exactly where we're going to be with some of these things. Like history, I didn't know exactly what week we would be on, and reading, I don't know what books we'll be reading yet. So this looks a little sparse, and normally I would like to fill in the whole thing so I can kind of get like a map of the whole year. Anyway, like I said in part 3, I will mostly be referring to this when I do my weekly planning. However, some of these lessons are going to need more detailed plans, specifically history. There are some things that I plan for my son's Writing with Ease. So some of these things are going to need more details, and that's where Notion comes in. So let me go over to Notion. Here is what I usually look at when I have been planning for this school year's weeks. I have all of my lessons in here, and then I have them filtered based on, what we're doing this week. Just to make things simple for myself, I'm going to go ahead and make a copy of this, but first I'm going to show you how you might start completely from scratch if you're just starting a whole new database and want it to look something like this. To give you an idea of kind of how I started, this is just a simple list of every page that is in this database. The way Notion works is you have different databases, and in those databases you have pages, and then you can sort pages or categorize them with different properties. For example, I'll open one page and you can see all of the different properties that I could give to each page. Now a lot of these I don't use anymore, but I'll go into that later. So if you were starting completely from scratch, I'd come over here and start a new page. And let's just call this video lesson so I don't get confused. Okay, now when I make this page, it's going to ask me where my data is coming from, but I'm creating a new database. So I'm going to go over here and click New Database. And it looks like it's starting me off with a timeline view and some cards as an example. I'm not really sure what this is. This isn't a view I normally use. I'm going to change it to just a regular table view. That's not what I want. Layout, here we go. Table, and they have different things, like if you're familiar with Kanban boards or Kanban, however you say it, this is actually very similar to how Trello is laid out with boards that you can move things around. But this is how I have my database set up for all my lesson plans. So in here you can really start customizing how you want to sort out your lessons and how you want things to look. In my other one I have a cover photo that you can add. You can add an icon, here's a little pencil. So you can do a little bit of customizing. The nice thing though is you don't have a whole lot of options for customizing to make this pretty, so it's a little less distracting than something like Trello. I'm not going to go into any more detail on how to do this because it's really going to depend on what you need. If you need to change the properties, you can do that here and add different properties. You can change what kind of property this is. There are various things like a drop menu where you can choose from 3 different options. You can have something like where you have tags. That would be multi-select, where you can select multiple options at once. You can have dates in here, which I played around with this year. Anyway, so there are a lot of things you can do to make this work for you. So let me go back to my regular lesson plans. Since I already have all this set up the way that I like it, I am simply going to copy this database and make a duplicate of it. Here we go. So now I'm going to rename this for the next school year. And I can make as many changes as I want to this without messing up my lesson plans for this school year, which we haven't quite ended yet. First, I'm going to go through the different types of pages that I have and how I've used them. Mostly they're different based on the subject that we're working on. Here's that Kanban view that I have based on different subjects. This history category, this is really where I have gotten the most use out of Notion. Each page is going to look pretty much the same. I have based each page on a week in Build Your Library's history lessons. So this is, for example, week 3 from level 6. And I just kind of gave myself a little keyword here so I knew what was going on in that week. So of course I have my different properties. Like I said, a lot of them I don't really use anymore. And then here I have made a list of all the books that we're going to be using with this lesson. And the nice thing about Notion is you can link between different pages or even different databases. So these all link to a separate database that has a list of all the books that we're using. So if I can't remember, I don't own this book and I need to get it from the library, I can click on it and it brings me directly to that page in the other database, and it'll tell me all the tags and information I put in here for this book. For example, this is at our local library. I know what weeks I'm going to need it for because I already put this stuff in here. So here's where I note what books I'm going to need for this week for the lessons, any materials I might need for any sort of arts or crafts that we're doing, and then the actual lessons themselves. You may know that I've been tying in things from River of Voices as well. So this is the lesson that I felt most closely tied in with this topic. So I have that noted here, and then I included, things that they mentioned in that lesson that I might want to use. Then down here, I have separated by day. So for example, this is everything from day 1 that Build Your Library has assigned. And then day 2 with the reading and timeline cards, day 3, day 4, day 5. We do 4 days a week, so we just kind of go through this at the pace that works best for us. But yeah, in each page you can do different things, like you can have just regular text, you can have checklists or to-do lists, you can have bulleted lists, you can link to things like PDF files. So I have pulled out the pages from the PDF file that I know I'm going to need to print. You could, I guess, link to different books if you needed to, but I didn't really need to do that down here. And then at the end, I include, any other sort of activities that we may have done that week. This is just a screenshot of that week's overview in Build Your Library in case I, just want to take a look at it really quick. And that's kind of how I've structured this. You can come in here and you can play with the different content that you can add to each page. You can add things like text, you can link to other pages, to-do lists, you can make headings, which is what these colored things are. You can include a table with data from somewhere else. There's just so much that you can do to make these pages exactly what you need it to be. To make my job a little bit simpler when I was inputting all of this data from the different weeks in Build Your Library is I created a template for how I wanted this whole page to look. And within that template, I created like a little template for each piece of content. So I can show you what that template looks like as well. So this is me creating a new page with that template. So I would rename it. It has all the tasks that I need. This is a simple multi-select property, things that I might need to get ready for that lesson, the subject. I guess this should be both of my kids, not just one of them. And this is the template for how it's supposed to look. So if I have a reading selection, I would click here, and I've already set this up to look the way I want it, and it just creates that and I fill in the information. Anyway, this is definitely the most complicated type of page that I have saved in these databases. Hopefully that gives you an idea of the power and what you can do. You really don't need to go in that level of detail though. Say you're using the teacher guide from Build Your Library as your guide, then you don't really need to do this. But I liked being able to link this to different book databases, and I like having links to different videos and things, especially the videos that River of Voices has recommended. So I just like to have it all in one place, and I was willing to do all the work ahead of time to get that ready for the school year. Now, other pages are definitely not as complicated, but I still have a lot of things in here that I like having at hand. This just saves me the trouble of having to pull out a teacher guide for Build Your Library, especially when I don't have much space. And I like having access to it on my phone too. Notion has an app that it makes it really easy to pull this stuff up when I need it. So for example, for this book, I have all of the discussion questions and vocabulary words and dictation passages that she has assigned. And that just makes it easier when we're, doing our read aloud. Again, this is linked directly to that book page in my book database. So that's what those look like. I'm not going to be using this anymore. I'll explain that in a minute. Not using that. A lot of these pages are actually more like placeholders because I was using Notion as my main way to organize what I was doing for every week. But since I will be using this spreadsheet in Google, I really don't need to have those placeholders anymore. I don't need to have a page in Notion saying lesson 1 for math because I know we're going to be doing it that week. I don't need it in here. So actually a lot of this is going to be going away. I'm only really keeping things that are going to help keep me organized or have, information that I want to have all together. Here's an example of a science page. For my son's physics, I basically just have a list of materials that I need for that week. This one I could probably do out of the book, but since I already did the work of putting it in here, I'll leave it. For biology level 2, there was a little bit more involved. I liked having links to all the books that go with that lesson, reminders for things, materials, and then I broke down the lesson components into different days based on the schedule in biology level 2. Anyway, I hope that gave you an idea of what these different pages can look like, how I have been using them. Now I'm going to actually go through and delete and clean up all of the things I'm not going to be using for the next school year. For that, I'm going to go to this table that shows everything that I have. I'm removing the filters so that, I can see all the pages that are actually created. These filters are also going to make it really easy for me to go in and clean up things. So to begin, I'm going to go in and delete anything that's complete because obviously we won't be using that next year. So status is complete. These are all the pages for lessons that we have actually finished. So I'm going to get rid of all of these. Okay, so that's everything that's complete. I also mentioned that there were some subjects that I would not be keeping pages saved in Notion, so I can get rid of those. Let's see, both of their math I won't be doing in here. We're no longer going to be using biology level 2. I will go over that in another video, by the way. There's nothing wrong with biology level 2, it stopped working for us. So even though we're about 2/3 of the way through the curriculum, we're going to go ahead and drop it for now. Also, I'm not going to be using the calendar feature of Notion because it's just too complicated. I don't need that when I have this already. My husband was doing some like 3D design type of class with them, and we aren't going to be doing that again, so I'll just glance through this, but I'm pretty sure all of this stuff is stuff we are not going to be keeping. So I still have quite a lot of pages left. I guess I'll just go ahead and start going through it to see what I want to keep and what I don't. This is a book that we'll be starting next week, so I don't need to keep that. I need to keep all of our history lessons because we will probably leave off somewhere around here when we break for summer, but I'll just leave it anyway. You know what? I just realized we don't need writing with skill in here because there's really no reason. Each page does not actually have any information in it, so I don't need to keep that. So I can search and narrow that down pretty quickly. You can also do things like change the way you sort this. I have it sorted by subject and then by name, I think. But you know, you could sort it by the student or the name or whatever. Here's another one that does not have like any information in it. Some of these I'm tempted to keep because we might come back to that curriculum at some point, but I have to remind myself that these pages are already saved in my other database for this school year, so if I ever wanted to pull them back up, all it takes is a quick search. So I don't need to clutter up this database with things I probably won't be using. I guess I could show you guys what this progress is. So this was just kind of a silly little thing I was playing with just to see if I liked it. So I made these pages and then I added pictures to them so they, you know, look nice. And there's a property to these pages that will fill in these little dots based on the percentage of that thing that I finished. So this other view shows a table with just these properties for these pages. So I would say that this is the number of lessons out of the total number of lessons that we have completed, and it would calculate the percentage with a formula and then fill in these dots. It was something I copied from another Notion template that I found, and I was just playing with it, but I never use it. It was just for fun. Okay, let's just take a look and make sure everything in here is stuff that I'm actually going to use or may use, you know, it's likely enough that I want to keep it in here. Alright, that looks pretty good. Now the other thing I'm going to do to clean this up is to get rid of all of these properties that I said I'm not using anymore. Again, I'm not keeping track of these dates because I have it all here and I really don't need anyone to know what dates I did certain lessons. This is one I may keep and I may not keep. I'm not sure I really need to know which student did which lessons if I have it all over here. Actually, you know what? Yeah, I probably don't need that. Okay, well that's easy. So that means this is no longer relevant. This is no longer relevant. This I may keep there. This is no longer relevant. I'll show you what this looked like. It seems like it would be really nice to have all of your things laid out, but when you looked at it, it was really not pretty to look at. This was just way too much. I mean, it was just too much for my brain to process. It's okay, I guess, if I wanted to filter by a certain, you know, subject or something, but I just didn't like this. So look at that. Look how nice and clean that is now. When I go in here and get ready for, the current week of school, I'll primarily be looking at this spreadsheet to see what we're going to be working on. And if it's something that has detailed lessons, I will mark the status as this week, and then it will filter into this table so I can quickly find those lesson plans when I need them. Otherwise, I really don't think I need to be, spending so much time on here like I did this year. So yeah, I hope that made sense to anyone except me and that it's useful. I think I'm reading some of your guys' minds when I say that you wish I had a template that you could simply download and plug into Notion so it looks just like this, if this is what works for you. My to-do list is out of control. I keep meaning to sit down and look at how to actually create a template or something that's easy to just hand over to you guys so that you can download it and use it just like this. I'm sorry, I just haven't made the time to do it. Comment down below though if this is something that you're interested in, and I will move it up my priority list. In the meantime though, you can check out this video with a little more on how Notion works, and you can find the rest of this Back to Homeschool series in this playlist up here. As always, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the bell so you get notified when the next video goes live. I'll see you next time. Bye.